Hey folks, Christmas isn't far away now, so we thought it'd be a perfect time to release a Christmas themed sew along. We are making the Cosy Christmas scene quilt. This quilt is made up of 9 blocks, which can be made in either the 4x4, 5x5, 6x6, 7x7 and the 8x8 size hoops. In this video tutorial, I will show you the stitch out of bottom block 1 and the construction of this amazing quilt. We recommend you follow our photograph written instructions in conjunction with this video tutorial. We also have a sew along group on Facebook where you can receive a 30% discount on this quilt. The link for that group will be in the description of this video. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Enjoy. Alright folks, let's start on bottom block 1. Begin by hooping up cutaway stabilizer in the hoop and load the design onto your machine. Use applique scissors for trimming the batting and fabric. Place batting 1 on top of the hoop and stitch the batting down. Remove the hoop from your machine and trim the batting about 1 to 2 mm from the stitching. Stitch the placer line for the floor. Place fabric A right side up on top of the hoop covering the placement lines and stitch down. Remove the hoop from your machine and trim the fabric about 1 to 2 mm from the stitching. Embroider the quilting on the floor. Repeat the applique steps with the rug using fabric B. And trim. Embroider the red work and then the satin stitch around the rock. Repeat the applique process with the first present using a piece of fabric large enough to cover the placement line. Trim. Then embroider the satin stitch around the present. Repeat the applique steps with the second present using a piece of fabric large enough to cover the placement line. And trim. Embroider part of the toy train and the wheels. Embroider the satin stitch around the second present and then the bow. Repeat the applique steps with the tree using fabric C. And trim. Embroider the star decorations on the tree. Embroider the satin stitch around the tree. Repeat the applique process with the last present using a piece of fabric large enough to cover the placement line. Trim. Then embroider the satin stitch around the present. Embroider the candy cane. Embroider the bow and the bow's outline around the last present. Embroider the tinsel on the floor. Embroider the red work part of the tree. Using the right stitching line on all of the embroidery as a placement line, place fabric D on top of the hoop wrong side up with the 1/4 inch crossing over the placement line, and the excess fabric pointing towards the center of the hoop, and stitch down. Fold over, hold taut, and stitch down. Trim the fabric from only the top and bottom 1 to 2 mm from the stitching, leaving the excess in the seams. Repeat the flip and fold process for the top border using fabric E. Trim only the left-hand edge, leaving the excess in the seams. Repeat the flip and fold process for the left-hand border using fabric F. Trim only the bottom edge, leaving the excess in the seams. Repeat the flip and fold process for the bottom window sill using fabric G. Do not trim. Embroider the snowflake red work on the window sill. Embroider the frost on the window. You have now completed the stitch out of bottom block 1. Remove from the hoop and trim the seams to about 1/2 inch. Now hold aside until all your blocks are made. Alright folks, once you have completed the stitch out of your blocks, lay out your blocks on a flat surface and decide on your layout. Start off by joining the blocks in rows. Place the first 2 blocks right sides together and pin along one edge, lining up the border stitching the best you can. Sew a 1/2 inch seam, sewing just inside the border lines already on the blocks. Open out the stitch seams and iron them flat. Continue this until you have joined the remaining blocks in that row together. Continue this until you have each horizontal row of blocks joined. Next, join the horizontal rows to each other by placing the first two rows right sides together. Pin and stitch the seams on your sewing machine. Stitch just inside the border already stitched on the blocks, so the stitching will not be seen on the right side later. Continue this until you have joined all the horizontal rows together. Once all of our blocks are joined together, we will start on our borders. We made ours 8 cm 3 inches wide. Measure one side of the quilt. Cut 2 strips of border fabric the length you just measured, fabric I, and cut 2 pieces of batting to match, batting 2. Next, we're going to secure the batting to the border fabric by lightly spraying temporary adhesive to the batting, and then lay your fabric right side up on the batting. Place the top edge of the quilt on top of the border fabric with the attached batting, right sides together, pinned together. Stitch together with a 1/2 inch seam. Pinning and stitching on the wrong side means you can make sure you're stitching inside the border line on the front. This will ensure this line of stitching will not show on the front. Trim back the batting from the seam allowance. Fold over and press the side border down neatly. Top stitch the border for a neat flat finish. Repeat for the opposite bottom border. Trim back the batting from the seam allowance. Trim the borders to make them even and in line with the side edges of the quilt. Now measure one of the side edges without a border, including the new border width in your measurement. We measured down the middle of our quilt for our average measurement. Place the bottom edge of the quilt on top of the border fabric with the attached batting right sides together. Pin and stitch a 1/2 inch seam from the edge. Trim back the batting from the seam allowance. Fold over and press the side border down neatly. Repeat for the opposite side border. Trim the borders to make them even and in line with the top and bottom borders. Place your backing binding fabric on your table, fabric K, wrong sides facing up. Place your sewn quilt front on top of the backing binding fabric, wrong sides together. You can lightly spray your backing fabric to the back of your quilt to help the block stay in place while stitching in the ditch. Alternatively, you can place safety pins approximately 4 inches apart across the whole front of the quilt, going through all layers. To join the backing to the quilt, stitch in the ditch, along the straight seams where each block is joined. Make sure your bobbin thread is the same colour as your backing fabric. Trim the excess backing so it is exactly 1 1/4 inches bigger around the quilt. We use a cutting rule and rotary cutter to do this. Starting on any edge, fold the backing fabric in half so the raw edge of the backing is up against the raw edge of the quilt. Then fold it in half again so it hides the raw edge of the quilt, and pin. Continue pinning your binding until you reach your first corner. Every time you fold the fabric, use an iron to press the fold. When you get to the corner, try and make a nice mitered corner. Turn your binding in at the corner and continue folding the same way as we did for the first side of the binding. You can press your fold as you go if this helps you with your mitered corners. Fold a final time and pin the corner in place. Continue folding, pressing and pinning your way around the quilt. Starting anywhere, sew the binding to the quilt just inside the folded edge of the binding. If you want, change your bobbin thread to match your backing. When you get to the corner, simply leave your needle down and lift the foot and rotate the quilt. Put your foot down and continue stitching in this fashion until you're right around the quilt. Give it a press with your iron. You have now finished your cozy Christmas scene quilt. Well, there we have it. Thank you so much for tuning into this month's Sew Along video. If you found it helpful, please like and subscribe. We truly hope you love our cozy Christmas scene quilt. Don't forget to share photos of your finished projects with the amazing Sweet Pea community. Also, please check out our website, sweetpea.com, for many more magical Christmas designs like this one. That's all from me. I'll see you next time.